Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Monday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. It is a busy one. We got football, we got fights, we got some hockey to talk about, a lot to get to. I got a heart out today, so let's dive right into it and start talking about the National Football League. Week number 15 in the NFL is just about in the books. We got drama across fantasy football. We got drama across the National Football League. I'm not sure if Toxic is in the chat yet, but he and I in a duel to move on in the Vampire League. He a dominant number 1 seed, me a plucky underdog as the 8 seed, and I need basically exactly 10 points from Darnell Mooney tonight. Also needing a good game from Bijan Robinson and a bad game from the Falcons defense. One of those seems more likely than the other, but we'll get into all of that. In the chat, for those watching live on twitch.tv/primetimepk, give me your thoughts in whether you want some fantasy football thoughts, what killed you in fantasy football this week, or any of your thoughts in the chat. By all means, let me know. But let's begin with what was the game of the day, and that was the Buffalo Bills with another big win, this time over the Detroit Lions, and it always felt like the Lions were trying to keep up in this game. And I mean, scoreboard-wise, they were. But just from a on-field standpoint, too, it just felt like they were chasing the entire matchup. And the Buffalo Bills, I think, showing that they may be, I don't want to say a class above, because I think that is probably reading too much into what we saw on Sunday afternoon. But I think you saw that once again, Josh Allen was the best player in a football game, and he was just brilliant, I thought, in that game again, and a really, really strong performance from him and this Buffalo Bills team. I said the ESPN headline today, did Josh Allen lock up the MVP? Yes, he has. He has done it. Saquon, I just don't think can get there. Lamar Jackson, I don't think the Ravens will get there. You could have, if Jared Goff would have come in here and won this game, and he didn't lose it for them. Let's be very clear about that. But if Jared Goff would have come in here and the Lions would have won this game, I think that there would have been a very compelling case for Jared Goff, narrative-wise anyway, to be the MVP. But this is Josh Allen's award now. I think we can all lock that up. The big takeaway on the Lions side is that this defense continues to get banged up. And I personally overrated them coming into this game, and thought that they maybe would give the Buffalo Bills a little bit more trouble. Right now, nothing is slowing Josh Allen down, but this defense isn't slowing a lot down. They get even more banged up, and now, as we look ahead to the rest of the season, and we'll do a bit of a season look ahead coming up on Wednesday, but as we look ahead to the rest of the season and then into the playoffs, can this defense get the stops that they need to get this team to a Super Bowl? Because they are going to be playing probably a couple pretty good offenses along the way in the NFC. Can this defense come up with a big stop at a big time, given the big injuries that they are dealing with right now? Moving on, all of a sudden, as Toxic is saying in the chat, Patrick Mahomes pulling a Mark Stone. All of a sudden, some drama around the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes spraining his ankle, putting some doubt into his availability on Saturday against the Texans, and then on Christmas against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a roll or an ankle sprain, like I said before, coming in a victory over the Cleveland Browns. I think right now, given that the Bills lost to the Rams a couple of weeks ago, there is some breathing room for the Chiefs atop the AFC. The Texans haven't been the most spectacular team anyway. A good team. Like, I don't think you can go, we can beat them with Carson Wentz. But I do think that given you have this 3 games in 10 days stretch here with Mahomes, and I don't want to say it means nothing, because it does mean a little bit, with the Bills still kind of nipping at your heels a little bit, and with Buffalo playing some really, really good football. I do believe that the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, they can't just, fold up tent, we got this, we're good. But I do think that Mahomes sitting for one of these games makes sense. And I think sitting him against the Texans is the one that makes the most sense. Now, yes, bringing him back on maybe a bad ankle against the Steelers probably doesn't help you all that much. But I think getting the 1 seed is still important, but making sure Patrick Mahomes is healthy is the absolute obvious, no matter what, 100% most important thing for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm not there. I'm not the doctor, but I think having him sit, giving him basically a bye week until next Wednesday so he doesn't have to play on a tight turnaround, on a tight ankle, I think that is probably the best way to go if you are the Kansas City Chiefs. And it just from a Bills standpoint, that loss against the Rams, it was a wild one and it was fun and all of that, but it makes that loss, I think, sting just a little bit more because you could be potentially in the driver's seat for that number 1 seed, which I do think will be important when we get down to late January in the AFC title game. The Miami Dolphins remain not for real is the headline I have here. The Tua situation is interesting because he is, like, just on this team, so clearly the best option, right? And I think you saw that he is not a bum as a quarterback because you saw bums at quarterback and what this offense looked like, and they couldn't move the ball for shit. And then he came in and this offense started to go and the train started to move on time a little bit more. But now I think you have seen that there is a ceiling to that. And I have been a Tua supporter. I still think that there is a pretty talented quarterback there. And look, he'd be the most talented quarterback on my team. But in terms of getting a team to a championship and getting a team to a next level, I don't think he is that guy. And I think the Dolphins kind of need him to be that guy. And he's not. He's, again, clearly a good quarterback. Not a great one, though. On the other side of that game, the Houston Texans got a much-needed win, but still not overly impressive. It's just nothing looks easy for them. That's the best way I could describe it. Nothing is coming easy for this team, especially on the offensive side of the football this year. It has been a really tough watch, and they have had to grind their way to a number of different victories. And now, look, when they get there, like they're still winning. That is the main thing. And they are playing, I guess, kind of a playoff style of football to get ready for it. But as the playoffs stand right now, taking a look at it at this exact moment. Oh, my wife is calling me. That's awkward. Someone doesn't get the notifications. But as it sits right now, what was I even looking? Oh, right. Playoff matchups. It is the Houston Texans. They've clinched their division. Congratulations. Very happy for you. They would play the Baltimore Ravens in the first round. I think the Ravens would be favored, and I would pick the Ravens to win that game. They just can't keep up offensively right now. So I think that there is some concern on the Texans side. I don't think a long-term thing. I still think CJ Stroud is good. I don't think we're having oh man, maybe Bryce Young is better. I don't think we're having those conversations or anything like that. But it needs to get better, and it needs to get better very quickly for this Texans team, which probably means it won't going into the playoffs. The Denver Broncos poured on late against the Indianapolis Colts, working the Broncos Hitmen game down at the Dome with Gino DiPaoli being able to hang out there was just a blast. And I'll talk about that game. Hopefully we'll have time to talk about that game at the end of the show. If not, we'll carve out some time later on in the day. But we were doing the out of town scoreboard and stuff like that, and it's, oh man, Colts are beating the Broncos 13-10. What's going on? That's a bit of a bummer. And then, like, by the time the next intermission comes around, it's 31-13 for the Broncos. Like, what the hell is going on? And then you see it's a trick play that doesn't go well. Obviously it was earlier in the game, but it's Jonathan Taylor fumbling a touchdown. It was a disaster on the Colts side. And for the Broncos, it's a big win. The defense comes up big. They did well. On the Colts side of things, I do think we're I think we have far past the thought that they have a quarterback problem. Anthony Richardson, he needs experience, but right now he just isn't it. He isn't getting it. There are a lot of fascinating tools, but there are a lot of really, really bad mistakes that are causing some problems at this time. And so I think it's going to be an interesting offseason for them because they have a lot of high-end talent on this football team, but they have a lot of holes, and this defense is just not that good. They have a lot of problems out there, but they have a lot of things that you can get excited about too, and a gigantic question mark at the quarterback spot. bit of an eye-opening loss for the Los Angeles Chargers in this game. Baker Mayfield just picked them apart. And look, like the offense struggled against this Bucs defense, and most don't struggle against this Bucs defense. You don't want to overreact to one loss. And I think this probably goes from the Chargers are a team that you think would lose in the first round of the playoffs to the Chargers are a team you think are going to lose in the first round of the playoffs. Like, I don't think this dramatically changes the landscape of anything for the Chargers, but going into the postseason, it was okay. The defense is good, and maybe they can steal some stuff. And Justin Herbert, he's starting to click, and this offense is starting to go. And yeah, they can't run the ball for shit, but they can move the ball through the air, and that's great. And now you see that, and it's, ooh boy. And from a fantasy standpoint, I know that he had, he was one that we were talking about as a must start, and you can even trust the receiving options there. And so that probably didn't help a whole lot of fantasy teams. Toxic, thanks for letting me know about the notifications thing either. I thought we had that figured out, but I guess not. On the Bucs side of things, this was, I think, a really nice statement from them. They won a couple of games, and that was good. Like, they beat the Raiders, they beat the Panthers, but it was a couple of games that was like, boy, those are not great teams that you're struggling to beat, and we're picking you to win this division now. So what's going on with that? That they were able to really, I think, put that to bed, because this was a good defense that they did this to, and Baker Mayfield put on a show. That was really interesting to see from him on Sunday afternoon. The Pittsburgh Steelers validating my power rankings, so thank you to them. I think this showed that they are a good team, but they are not among the elites, and I think keeping them out of that top four was the right move on my part. They just, and look, Pickens, I don't think he is a real number one, but I think this offense really struggles without him, and I think you saw that this team, the Russell Wilson thing, it's been fun, and the defense is really good, but there are still some flaws, and there are still some issues with this team that keeps them from being that number one group. So we will see if they can get that sorted out. They obviously have a great coach. They have a couple big games coming up here as the season winds down. But on the Eagles side of things, that was a statement I thought that they made against the Steelers. It was an impressive performance against a really, really strong football team. And one that I just said, like, that they're not among the elites, but that's still a difficult team to look good against. And you get some touchdown celebrations and all of that. Now, a couple of injury issues potentially late in this game. Saquon Barkley came up holding his ankle, it kind of seemed, and A.J. Brown was on the wrong end of a hip drop tackle. That wasn't called, and it ended up not affecting things here, but we will see what the injury report says about those two players going into either the fantasy semifinals or a very important game for the Eagles, because now they are tied with Detroit for a shot at the number one seed in the NFC, and that very, very important first round bye. But also, talking about the importance of things, how different does it look for the NFC Championship game, either having to go into the Dome in Detroit to play that Lions team, or getting to host it outside in the cold and misery of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? That's where home field advantage really comes in. So that number one seed is going to be really, really important for the Philadelphia Eagles. Staying in that division, this one, like the scoreboard looks a little bit closer than it was, just because of a late run by the Saints, and then some clock issues that maybe made it a little bit closer than it seemed. But still, I have stated before that I have respect for the Saints defense, but I still think that the Commanders probably should have been able to move the ball a little bit more effectively against the Saints. And this was one that I was just kind of like glancing at and didn't see a ton of. So maybe when I go back and fully sit down and watch it, we'll see something different there. But this is, I think, a defense, or this is a Saints defense that will give teams problems, but this is a Commanders offense that hasn't mattered against. And so I do think as this season is going on, this Commanders team is kind of fading back to the pack a little bit. And now those teams that are battling for top spot in the NFC West, they are right at the door, knocking on for a chance to get into the playoffs, with the Commanders trying to hold them off. So that's going to be, all of a sudden, we have a couple playoff races showing up, at least on the NFC side. And then Sunday Night Football, the real Green Bay Packers show up. This was the team we were looking for. Offensively, it's still not perfect, but Josh Jacobs is a beast, and they at least were able to get the weapons involved enough that they were able to put on a good performance against a Seahawks defense that I was buying as for real and was looking like they were for real for a little bit. So to put up that showing against that defense is allowing me to take Green Bay a little bit more seriously once again here in the NFC playoff race. And I think that they are going to get into a point where they are going to be team you don't want to face in the playoffs category. So it should be fun to see what they do. On the Seahawks side, once again, a lot of flaws show up. Geno Smith gets hurt, and the offensive line issues really show up. Sam Howell was just obliterated back there in the pocket by a Green Bay pass rush that isn't exactly elite or a dangerous unit in this league or anything like that. And so watch out for that. But I do think that you shouldn't let the injury thing fool you. This offense didn't look very good, even with Geno in there. And we just remember the last little bit, and okay, well, it ends up being a blow, but Geno got hurt. Like, no, it was 20-3 at halftime, and Geno was in there. And then he gets banged up, and then it kind of goes sideways on them. So there are, I think, some kind of legitimate concerns again around the consistency of this offense. And we had forgotten about them for a little bit, but now they pop up. The one thing, I don't get why DK Metcalf isn't more involved in this offense. It is so quiet. And look, I was touting JSN from the beginning of the season and had him in the Vampire League, and maybe he's going to get me a win this week. We'll see what Darnell Mooney does tonight. But the fact that he is just the de facto number one and DK Metcalf, this superhuman player, isn't getting any looks is nothing short of very surprising to me. So we will see what this offense can do. But they were a team that felt like they were in the driver's seat after that win against Arizona. And now all of a sudden they're on the outside looking into the playoffs because the Rams are rolling. And this was the time of year I thought the Rams were going to fall off, but everyone's gotten healthy now for them, and they have been able to stay within striking distance. A phenomenal job by them has them now feeling like they're in the driver's seat in the NFC West. Still a couple of games left on the schedule tonight. It is the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears. We did this on the weekend preview, but the Vikings, I think this defense puts on a show against the Bears. I think Chicago's offensive line issues combined with a Brian Flores defense makes for a very long night for Caleb Williams. And so the Vikings, I have them to kind of round out a parlay this week. That would be a nice little win on what was easily for me the most profitable weekend of the NFL season. So that was really nice to see. Both on like the actual picks and some DraftKings work as well. But still, the Vikings, I think, put on a show here and put it away. And in the other Monday Night Football game, it is, my boys, the Raiders, taking on the Atlanta Falcons. It's a must-win for the Atlanta Falcons, and I think it's the last straw for Kirk Cousins. If this team doesn't look impressive against the Raiders, or even loses, then it is the Michael Penix era in Atlanta. They had a real comfortable lead for top spot in this division, and it has fallen off, and Kirk Cousins has looked abysmal. And now this team, if they lose this game, they're basically done. And it's against the Raiders team that doesn't have Max Crosby, which means they don't have talent on the defensive side. This should be a big game for the Atlanta Falcons, and it is a monster spot for Kirk Cousins if he wants to remain the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. So that is the Week 15 story in the NFL. Toxic, both of us had all-stars on our bench. Man, Brian Thomas Jr., that one, that one, if I end up losing this, which I probably will, that one's going to haunt me for a very long time. But how can you put your trust in a guy who has Mac Jones throwing him the football for your fantasy championship, or fantasy playoff anyway? But that is the joy of the fantasy football world. We'll have a lot of fantasy football talk coming up on the show tomorrow with the waiver wire look and the fantasy football dumpster darlings. A few very good candidates as we go into the last couple of games of the week. Let's shift gears now and go into the world of combat sports. The biggest fight of the year is also the last fight of the year, as Oleksandr Usyk goes up against Tyson Fury for the heavyweight championship of the world. So today we are going to look at what this fight means for the current, reigning, and defending, should be undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Oleksandr Usyk, as we take a look at the Fight Night storylines going into this particular bout. It is Usyk Fury 2 coming up this weekend. A gigantic fight to close out an excellent year of 2024 in the world of boxing. So, what is on the line for Oleksandr Usyk coming up this weekend as he defends the unified but not undisputed heavyweight championship of the world? First of all, just a quick note. That is so stupid. I hate it so much that he won the undisputed heavyweight championship when he beat Tyson Fury. Has not lost since. Hasn't even taken that long off. May to December is perfectly reasonable amount of time to take off when you're getting punched in the brain. And in that time, he has inexplicably lost one of his heavyweight championships. Goddamn boxing. But either way, the recognized heavyweight championship of the world is on the line this weekend. And so, first of all, when we ask, hey, what's on the line? That, just the moniker of being the number one heavyweight in all the land is on the line, and everything that comes with it. Now, it is not with the prestige that it once was. Out here in Calgary, I host trivia, and one of my questions this week was, hey, who's the heavyweight boxing champion of the world? Because a lot of times, everyone in the world knew who that was. And I think out of the, what was it? I think I had 15 tables this week at the three things that I did. Oh, more than that, I guess. I had around 20 at the three things that I did, and I think 2 tables got it right. So heavyweight champion doesn't mean what it once did. But still, in the boxing world, the heavyweight title still carries so much meaning, and Usyk has a chance to continue to carry that coming out of this one. He has been a fantastic champion, and it is an amazing career. 22-0 with some very big wins coming along the way. And so, from a legacy standpoint, I don't think he loses anything with a loss, but remaining champion in what looks like is going to be a pretty wild time in boxing, with Saudi Arabia not going away. Maybe the UFC is getting involved. We will see. But either way, it seems like it's a pretty good time to be the heavyweight champion of the world. And Oleksandr Usyk will look to hold on to that mantle coming up here this weekend. From a legacy standpoint, he obviously has already done a lot. And it's an interesting spot because he has had an amazing career and he has done a lot. And I don't think a win here changes a ton of it, but I also don't view him as one of the all-time guys, right? That being said, a win here, and now he has 2 wins over the 2 of the defining heavyweights of this era. And I think that's pretty monumental, right? He would have the 2 wins against Fury if he wins, and he would have the 2 against Anthony Joshua. That already in the books there. And so I think a win here does solidify him as one of the best ever to go from cruiserweight to heavyweight, getting in that Evander Holyfield conversation. Already there, but this might move him to the tippity top of that. I really don't think we're talking about best ever status if he comes out. Now, if he walks out and just blasts Tyson Fury into the first row in the second round, then, maybe we can revisit some stuff. But I don't think you're talking about, like I said, greatest ever status. But I do think you have to start talking about the heavyweight of this era. And I just, when I look at the post-Klitschko era, I view it as, in heavyweight, Fury, Joshua, Wilder. Those are the guys that I kind of focus on. Because Usyk came to the party a little bit late, or a lot late, I guess, in this case, it doesn't feel like he is in that realm necessarily. It just kind of feels like a different era, which is weird because he is older than those guys also. But it just kind of feels like he comes up at the end and is kind of taking it into a new era with him, and Dubois and those guys, right? But if he does win this again, it's 2 wins against Fury, 2 wins against Joshua. He doesn't have any against Wilder, but he'll have 2 against the guy who beat Wilder. So maybe it just does put him in heavyweight of the generation era, or whatever you want to call it. What it certainly does is add to an amazing resume. And so for a sport that has this long lineage at heavyweight, it is obviously going to be very difficult to crack any top 10 or top 5 or Mount Rushmore or whatever you want in terms of a resume, especially now, given the greats that have come before. But that doesn't take away from the amazingness that is Oleksandr Usyk and the talent that he has brought into this heavyweight division. From a fight standpoint now, what does he need to do? I think the first thing, kind of obvious, a bit of a quicker start is going to be key. He is definitely going to have the cardio edge in this fight, but he cut it way too close in the last one, needing that big knockdown in the ninth to edge out a split decision. I think he has the speed edge. I know he has the speed edge and he has the cardio edge. We know those things will be there. I think you need to utilize that a little bit earlier in this fight and kind of dictate how you want it to go. And that will be, I think, an advantage he will have over the previous fight. I think the thing that will help with that is he's obviously going to have a bit of a better sense of Fury's range, having danced that dance for 36 minutes just a few months ago. So he is going to be very comfortable in that world. I don't know how much Fury is going to adjust going into this fight. I don't know what adjustments you can make if you are Tyson Fury. I think you will understand that the head games aren't going to work against this guy, and I think you will kind of understand that the early part is going to be a very, very important part of this for Fury, and very much a make hay while the sun shines sort of a thing, because this is Usyk's fight the longer it goes. I do think that Usyk being the favorite makes a ton of sense, and I do think it is a deserving favorite nod as we go into this fight. I think it is going to be another very close fight, but ultimately, again, I think the tools in the toolbox for Usyk just help him out a little bit more going into this one against Fury. But, and everyone knows it, he knows he is going to have to be perfect for all 12 rounds if he wants to come away as the heavyweight champion of the world. We are going to have a ton more on this fight. I am so excited for Saturday afternoon to catch this bout. I think it is going to be a blast to watch it this weekend. So we got a ton more coming up on this fight as the week rolls along. Shout out to Deeds in the chat. Once again, thank you very much, Deeds, for the subscription. Always greatly appreciated. Means the world to me. Thank you so much. Means the world to me that you guys just pop in and hang out. But the support there on top of it is truly appreciated. But yeah, sorely limps in after the ass kicking Mrs. Primetime gave me this weekend. Hey, PK and Toxic. Yes, hey, Deeds. That was quite the thing. I wasn't, like I said before, I was doing the color commentary on the Hitmen game with the Broncos, and so I wasn't paying super close attention, but I do have Jared Goff in another league, and I looked down and I got an alert and said 66-yard passing touchdown. It's like, well, I know my wife has that, and so I looked over and checked, oh my goodness, yeah, just a dominant performance from her. Yeah, that very few fantasy teams would have lost to my wife this week. That was quite the performance. And then she went out and kicked our asses in Settlers of Catan as well. So a pretty strong week in the world of my wife as she closed it out with a bang on the weekend. The WWE segues, closing out their weekend with a whole lot of nostalgia. WWE's Saturday night's main event from Nassau Coliseum. I had a blast watching it. Let's talk about it, shall we? It was WWE's Saturday night's main event, and I think every nostalgia thing you wanted them to hit, I think they nailed it. It was, I thought, a perfect balance of not leaning too far into the old, modernizing it a little bit, but not disrespecting it, and actually having some tributes to it and everything like that. I think that there was a lot to really, really like about what they did for Saturday night's main event. I thought the opening, all the graphics and the music and everything was fantastic. And then Joe Tessitore, I could listen to him narrate with a phone book. Like, he was a little over the top for Monday Night Football. I think we understand that, and I think we agree on that. But he's perfect for the world of WWE. The big intro, we are coming to you live from New York. Like, all of that was just perfect. He is so great at the world of wrestling. And then Jesse Ventura is exactly what you needed for this one. I think as they played some clips, you remember, like, man, like we were at a point where it would be absurd for Gorilla Monsoon to have lived this long, but it would have been cool if he could have been back around. And it would have been cool if you could have had a Gene Okerlund or a Howard Finkel. And so you do have those nods to the past who are no longer with us, which are unfortunately, you get a lot to choose from in the world of professional wrestling, but I thought they hit all of that really well. And then Pat McAfee, I know he's not for everyone, but I really like what he brings to a WWE broadcast in kind of modernizing it, and I think he brings the best out of Michael Cole as well. And yeah, talking about the nostalgia, we'll talk about the championship match in a second, but Deeds in the chat, keep the Winged Eagle championship. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Just seeing that, it was perfect. And I have debated my favorite belt for a long time because I love that one. But then I think after, like, the Attitude Era one is when I really grew up in wrestling, and so that just feels like a world title to me. The big gold belt from WCW is a perfect championship belt. And also, I like the first undisputed championship that the WWE made, in part because I have one here, because I won it in a draw many years ago. So I have a few favorites, but seeing that one on TV again in HD and all of that, I was like, oh, it's a championship, right? Like, it feels like a championship belt. So I thought that was just chef's kiss. Perfect. Absolutely loved it. First match was Drew McIntyre against Sami Zayn. I thought this match was exactly what it was supposed to be. I really enjoyed this. You get the crowd to bite on a Sami Zayn near fall. You get to play into him as being a bit of an underdog, but still not as much of an underdog as he would have been against Drew a couple of years ago. And I think that was a subtle nod in this match, that Sami Zayn is hanging with Drew a little bit better than maybe he would have a bit ago, and just kind of speaking to Sami's elevation as a character and as a performer in the WWE. But ultimately, the main focus of this match was, let's make Drew McIntyre look like a gigantic ass kicker again. And boy, howdy did he. What a performance from Drew McIntyre. I thought he looked really, really strong, and I think that was the exact look that he needed going now into WrestleMania season. I'll be interested to see what happens next, because there is this, like, he's on a mission to just destroy anything that is attached to the old bloodline. I don't think we ever get a Drew versus Roman thing. I don't, but do we get Jey Uso? I mean, maybe, and just kind of roll through that. I have said before that we fought these guys and now you're with these guys story is going to get old because it's happening in a number of different ones, but I think the main thing out of this is that there is some realism with the Drew McIntyre thing, and you could kind of believe where he is coming from and why he would be so frustrated about that whole situation. The Women's World Championship, Liv Morgan taking on Io Sky. As much as I didn't want it to be, this was a pretty predictable outcome. The main story on the women's side and on Raw right now is Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez to a certain extent, and Rhea Ripley. And so you need to have the championship there. I love Io Sky. I think she is an amazing performer. If you've watched any of this content at all, you know that I will just gush about her at any opportunity. And I think she was great. I thought it was a fun match, a bit of a hard-hitting affair, so to speak. I thought, again, the crowd was really into this one. Crowd was into it all night. This was a really good crowd out in New York. They did an awesome job making everything kind of feel the way it was supposed to. And I thought Io comes out of this feud feeling a little bit more important and legitimately feeling like a main eventer instead of someone who was a champion for a bit and then she was in a tag team thing and now she's whatever. And like she feels like a main event player on the Raw side, and it is now up to them, and it is something that they have struggled with. It is something AEW really struggles with right now, but main event level performers in storylines not around the championship. You get them all the time on the guy's side, but on the women's side, it's basically just champion, challenger, and that's it. We need more high-level stories on the women's side going forward. And then Rhea comes out, and I thought it was great. This is a lot of eyeballs on NBC on Saturday night's main event. You want to get Rhea Ripley out there feeling like a badass, and boy, did she feel like a badass, coming out there doing the stomp and all of that, and setting up this rivalry and really kind of driving it home as a really big deal going forward. The one thing I didn't like, and it's an old school wrestling thing, and I get annoyed when old school wrestling people do some of this stuff, but Liv and Raquel are just standing there while Rhea Ripley comes out, does the big stomp, and then flips the hair up and is looking. And it's like, if you guys were badass heels or whatever, as she does a big stomp and is not looking, you jump her and you attack her because she's not looking at you. The disrespect of it all. But I mean, again, it is because there's a face-off that is being set up, and it sets up the feud for the rest of the year. So from a TV standpoint, like, it makes sense to not do it. But just from if this is a real life fight situation, why are they not attacking her? But that's just me way overthinking things in the world of professional wrestling. Damian Priest against Finn Balor against Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. I thought Damian Priest came out of this looking like a goddamn star. Like he has this look. He is back to being his regular self. And we have seen this year a few times promotions have some trouble going from badass heel that everyone falls in love with. Now let's try to make them a bit more likable. And we've just taken away all the badass characteristics that made them likable. Now we're bored by them because there really isn't a whole lot to their personality. They have been able to bring that back out of Damian Priest and kind of get that swagger and that cool back. And just the way they shoot the intro and all of that really makes him seem like a big deal. And I thought he kind of came out of this match looking like that. Gunther coming out and then ignoring the fans, I thought that was fantastic. Back to the heel, as he should be. And then the match was fantastic. The one thing, I don't think any of the crowd was really biting on any of the near falls or anything like that. So there were a couple of moments that felt like the crowd should have been there for, that they weren't necessarily. But then you get that this is awesome chance and the crowd was into it. They were just enjoying the match. But I don't think anyone thought that Damian Priest was leaving Saturday night's main event as the World Heavyweight Champion. I don't think anyone thought Finn Balor was leaving as the World Heavyweight Champion. And so now you probably get one big blow-off match with Priest and Balor. I don't know if you can hold that off till the Royal Rumble. I think that you make that a big Monday Night Raw episode match and do it that way. You do also have the Netflix return, but that one, maybe it's a good blow-off match for the second week on Netflix, because you're always going to have like Roman and Punk out there. Like, you're going to have a lot going on that show. Keep something for the next week and really start to build that one up that way. But again, a fantastic match. Gunther is such a great badass, and Priest and Balor, I think, show that they belong in the championship picture. Speaking of championship pictures, we have a new one. The United States Championship on the women's side, the inaugural Women's United States Championship. Chelsea Green taking on Michin. I love that these performers are getting this spotlight. I love that there's a mid-card title on both Raw and SmackDown, giving opportunities to these performers to be able to shine. And I thought shine they did. I thought they both took advantage of the spotlight really, really well. Michin, the intro and everything, she looks like a badass. I don't know why so many companies don't really go for it with her, because I've always really loved her as a performer. But Chelsea Green was the star of the show, and then the finish was fantastic. Doing flipping off of the top, hooking for the unprettier, and getting the win. The crowd lost it. They were so behind Chelsea Green and so excited to have her win it. And then you could see some real emotion from Chelsea Green. She was legitimately fired up and then went back into the character really quickly, and then it kind of bounced between the two for a little bit. I thought that added some realism to the whole thing. But I thought it was great, and I'm so happy that Chelsea Green gets this opportunity now. And again, hoping that it is built properly. Not like the women's tag team titles where, okay, now we have a challenger. There isn't a story. It's for the title. And that's it. We need to use this as something that is important, but also use it as an opportunity to not just have characters compete for it, but to tell us about these characters and their motivations in competing for it. And so hopefully we get a little bit of that as the weeks and months go on. Cody Rhodes against Kevin Owens for the WWE Championship. As you would expect, this was a really good match. And then I thought, hey, Jesse Ventura, he wasn't perfect on commentary. It wasn't right back to 1985 or anything like that, but he was good. I thought that he had an understanding of the psychology of the match and had been paying attention enough to know, like, okay, I can piece this together pretty well. And so he was great. I thought he was fantastic with this and just adding some of that nostalgia to it. And then it was kind of an 80s style finish, right? With a ref bump and a one, two, and kicks out. Oh, and another ref bump. And now the first ref is back. Oh my goodness, all this is happening. And so it kind of felt like an old honestly, Saturday night's main event, Hulk Hogan against King Kong Bundy, or Earthquake, let's say. And, oh, the referee is down. 1, 2, and oh, he kicked out. And now what's Dino Bravo doing in there? And now Hogan is down. No, not like this. 1, 2, and oh, he kicked out. It was a lot like this. And then, honestly, Cody using Crossroads on the chair to beat Kevin Owens. It gives Kevin Owens an out going forward. But it also, it did have a little bit of old school on an old school night, right? Like, Conrad Thompson has talked about this on his podcasts, but Hulk Hogan wrestled like a heel a lot, right? Like, Royal Rumble 1992, he goes to shake Psycho Sid's hand and then pulls him, or Sid Vicious at the time, I guess, pulls him out of the ring, along with Ric Flair dumping him out, and that costs him. Like, that's a heel thing to do. And Hulk would do a lot of those, right? Like, referee is down, waffling guys with the chair, in the least believable chair shots ever, but you know what I mean. And so this one, there was a little bit of that where it had a bit of an 80s feel to the whole thing. And so I thought it was a nice little nostalgic type finish to a nostalgic type night. Overall, I thought this was great. I'm looking forward to more Saturday night's main events in the future, and I think it is a really good thing that they have the winged eagle belt, the eagle wings belt, as Deeds was calling it. All of it was excellent, and I just thought they hit every note exactly how they needed to all night long. And so I really enjoyed this whole thing. You could probably tell. I really enjoyed this whole thing, and I think WWE is set up in a real good spot now going into 2025. As far as wrestling content is concerned on the channel here for the rest of the week, hoping to have a Monday Night Raw recap for y'all tomorrow as we start to come out of Saturday night's main event, building toward the Netflix debut, and then the Royal Rumble and all of that. And then coming up on Friday, this was... we've had a couple of big moments since we've done this. It's been a while since we've done this, so I think it's time to rehash what I think WrestleMania 41 is going to look like. So we're going to book WrestleMania 41. That'll be coming up on Friday. We do have a few minutes here. I do want to discuss what I saw at the Dome. I was lucky enough to do color commentary for Country 94-1 with Gino DePaoli as the Swift Current Broncos were taking on the Calgary Hitmen. It was a Calgary game, but I was able to do color for the visitors, the Swift Current Broncos. Quite a few takeaways. So let's talk some hockey as we put a bow on this one here today. It was, sorry, I dropped my pen. A really fun game down at the Dome on Sunday afternoon. No, it was not the Calgary Flames, although they had a fun night at the Dome on the weekend as well. It was the Calgary Hitmen taking on the Swift Current Broncos. And I have been guilty of this in the past, but I just have to say, we need to be paying more attention to junior hockey. It was such a fun hockey game on Sunday afternoon. There was so much talent out there on the ice. And I get, like, the hockey options here in Calgary are vast, but this was a really fun game. And I think the WHL is going to be wild down the stretch. 3rd and 9th right now in the Eastern Conference, and they do 1 through 8. Division winners get 1 and 2, and then it seeds after that, and then there's a reseeding thing in the play in the second round and all that. But it is the traditional 1 through 8. So 3rd to 9th right now, separated by 5 points. And there's a ton of talent across the league. 8 players on Team Canada are from the World Junior Hockey Championship. 5 of them coming from the Eastern Conference. So the East battle is going to be just a load of fun. And Calgary, I am telling you, the Hitmen are a good watch. First, you have Yakimchuk, who is Ottawa Senators prospect, was a first-round pick this last year. There are some flaws. And that has been discussed in this guy's game for a really, really long time. Like that is just something that we have agreed on for a while with this dude. But what he does well, he does so well. The skating is so smooth. His shot is excellent. There is a lot to be really, really excited about this kid. There is some growing up that needs to be done. Calgary had a power play. The game was close all game long. But Calgary had a power play and a chance to really start to pull ahead. And he takes a dumbass cross-checking penalty behind the offensive net that makes it a 4-on-4. And this was just after the Hitmen had killed off a penalty and Swift Current's power play looked really good. So it was another chance to let Swift Current kind of build that momentum. So I thought just wrong place, wrong time, wrong brain cells firing off. Just a bad decision from him. And then defensively, there's some stuff that you'd like to see changed. A couple times that he got beat, and for a guy his size, it was too easy to get around him or through him. And so you would like to see some of that kind of tighten up a little bit. And I think you can. Like, that is why you go back to the Western Hockey League, is so you can work on things like that. But the offensive skills are exquisite. Kalen Parker, he is a Minnesota Wild prospect. I thought he was a strong player on the blue line as well. I thought the vision and the awareness that he showed on the ice was really impressive. He knew the perfect place to be at the perfect time, and his reads, I thought, were really good. The offensive stats don't blow you away, but I thought he had a really good offensive game, and has a few tools that maybe there's a little bit more you could get out of him on that side, but defensively he was sound. I fell in love with Oliver Tulk in this game. His size probably keeps him out of the NHL. I want to get this right, but I am pretty sure we are not talking about the biggest cat here. Yeah, 5'8", 174. If this dude is my height, he was the first overall pick. The compete, which you have to have when you're 5'8", the compete is obviously there, but he is constantly looking to attack. Everything that he does is with the idea that I'm going to get the puck and I'm going to go to the net and I'm going to get an opportunity. The shot is wicked, and you could see there was a respect for that. Calgary had a power play, and Tulk cuts into the middle, which was a good read by him, and again, that attacking nature, but then because of that, 3 guys swarm on him, and he drops it back, and Yakimchuk is wide open, and gets a big goal that helped Calgary in their comeback win over the Swift Current Broncos. I should mention that it was 4-3 Calgary, the final score in that game, but he just let an absolute bullet go, and Tulk had a couple of really good opportunities in this game as well. So he was one where I wish there was a way for him to make some kind of an NHL roster or some kind of a next step, because I like so many aspects of his game. It just happens to come in a package that is a little bit smaller than NHL teams would like. Ben Kindle, a second to third round pick, according to NHL Central Scouting. He got the B grading in the most recent one. Picked up an assist, so it's a 13 game point streak, with 25 points in that time. He had a bomb of a shot on the power play, and I thought just a really solid game overall. And another guy who stood out to me was Max Mironov. He doesn't stop. The motor is great, and he's a really powerful skater. He had a defender just draped all over him and powered to the net for an opportunity. Ended up not cashing. He only has 6 goals this year, but he gets himself in the right spot all the time. And 22 goals last year, so he can put the puck in the net. You would like to see maybe a little bit more finishing ability if he's going to do something at the next level, but that motor is something that is going to be a real asset for him, I think, moving forward. On the Swift Current side, I thought they bounced back really well. They were coming off of a 7-3 loss against Edmonton, and they battled. They did a lot of the things that they needed to tighten up. They were a little bit soft and a little bit sloppy against Edmonton in their previous game on, I guess it was Saturday night. So Saturday night, they get into Calgary at 1:30 in the morning, then they have a 4 o'clock game. So it was a bit of a tight turn for them. But I thought you saw that compete, and you saw how aggressive they were through the neutral zone. They were able to do a really good job of building up some speed through the neutral zone and creating some opportunities. And then counter to that, they made the neutral zone a nightmare for Calgary, at least in the early part of the game. And that's where they had a lot of success. The problem came, they were being a little too cute. Like, shots after one period of play were 11-5 for Calgary, but I didn't think that was really a good indication of how the game was going. Swift Current had the puck a bunch, but it was just anytime they would get it, they would get a guy behind the defender, and instead of let's put a shot on goal and get a chance, it was let's try to feather a perfect saucer pass in there for a one-timer chance. And a lot of those ended up sliding wide, and that kind of kills any momentum you have. When you're playing on a back-to-back and you know the gas tank is going to be limited, you have to go out there and make the most of your opportunities and maybe simplify things a little bit. And when they did, they were successful. A few guys who kind of stood out, the Caswell, DeZane, and Misselbacher line was a whole lot of fun. They were dangerous every time they stepped on the ice. Caswell has like a laser finder or something, because every one of his passes is in the exact perfect right spot that it needed to be. I loved watching him play. Misselbacher, it lent itself to a lot of puns, but it was an excellent shot a missile, so to speak. He was fantastic. I'm running out of time to kind of gush about it, but Gould was great. Copeland is a 6th, 7th round watch candidate for Central Scouting. I thought he battled well in his own end and just kind of showed a good all-around game. And Reed Dick, 6th round pick of the Boston Bruins, really athletic goalie. Only one shot really got through him, and that was a Yakimchuk open look. After that, there was a deflection and then a couple of rebound goals. So I thought he had a really good bounce back game after a shaky night in Edmonton. But like I said, overall, and I'm guilty of this too, we need to support junior hockey. It was a heck of a hockey game, and we are going to get really excited about a bunch of junior hockey players in a couple of weeks, for a couple of weeks. Let's extend that, because there's a lot of really good talent out here in Calgary that this team is going to be battling for a playoff spot, and the Dome, on a lot of nights, quite frankly, is empty. So let's fill that up a little bit more, get out and support the Calgary Hitmen. It was a really, really fun atmosphere with a lot of minor hockey teams there on a Sunday afternoon. That's going to do it for the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm about to go do a year in review with the Fresh Take Network. We're going to be streaming it live. I don't have the link for where it's going to be live, so follow us on social media for all of that. And then all of that is going to be used as year in review shows in the coming weeks to kind of fill out the calendar that way. So I'm not sure if I'll have the voice or the time to come back on for a video game stream today, but we'll be back streaming the show tomorrow at noon. Will be the next live Couch Potato Diary. So thank you to Toxic, thank you to Deeds in the chat, thanks to everyone else who hung out today, and I will talk to all of you later. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.